Four French drivers at the French Grand Prix trying to win this on the final lap. The three wide again, Guillaume down the inside. Guillaume moves across, they're both in front of Milan and Pouget.
But before you know it, we find ourselves here in the very final race of the competition.
And then they see truck racing and they think, this is crazy, you know, these are 5-ton machines, 1200 horsepower brake.
Oh, look at that switchback. Oh, he's been mugged and it's ready to go off. Ben Gregory now. I love this. 10.5 minutes gone. Senna Lanson tries to go for the race lead.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Chaz Draycott Media, and welcome to the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge, and welcome to the second half of the season here in Season 5. My name is Chaz Draycott, with the wonderful Ed May alongside me in the commentary box. Ed, we've had a great season so far. A lovely, lovely round last time out at Donington Park. Plenty of action, but we're back to the endurance format now as we return to Belgium and go to Zolder. This is going to be a corker, this.
Yeah, two excellent races treated us, didn't they, at the wonderful Donington Park. Thank you very much, Chaz, for the lovely intro. And yes, we are here at the amazing Zolder circuit with a nice new revamp for this season. We couldn't have timed it any better if we'd tried. It's a circuit that has been on the service for a long time, and I don't need to say that it needed a facelift, but it's certainly very much welcomed, hasn't it, Chaz? It's looking absolutely lovely, even if it's slightly overcast at the moment. No threat of rain, though. It does appear to be a dry run from the lights to flag. We'll see how the drivers negotiate on a circuit which pretty much is, for all intents and purposes, the exact same as it was before, just with slightly more revamped scenery. Revamping as well in the championship, aren't we, Chaz? We've had a few sort of dramatic moments last time out, and it is so close to call right at the very top.
It really is, yeah. Look at that. Just 1 point between Taylor Adams and Jake Cranstone. Both of them having a big, solid run at the front of the order so far. But Taylor Adams will be missing a couple of rounds of the championship, which is a huge, huge shame. Nils Coronet and Williams are tied on points for Satellite Racing Blue, just 3 ahead of Lewis Ward after a great time at Donington Park. Dan McCauley, after a lovely night, gets himself up into 6th place in the championship as well, ahead of Callum Brandt, Matt Slight, Ian Pfeiffer and Dominic Brennan. Simon Povey having a poor run of form at the moment on just 70 points, but it's remarkably close between them all though, isn't it, Ed? Because only 1 or 2 points here or there could make all the difference to your championship campaign. Even in the team's championship, actually, there's only, 12 points between Regenta and Satellite Racing Blue. That's remarkably, remarkably close there.
It is. It's so tight, and it's one of those things that we absolutely love as commentators because it means that we never really know how the season will pan out towards the end of the race. Like you said, Taylor Adams is going to miss a couple of rounds, but we have seen drivers come back from less. We only have to look to Simon Povey, a driver who's missed out on a few rounds over the course of the past few seasons, and he's been able to fight there right until the very end as well. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be smooth sailing for Jake Cranstone. Speaking of actually Jake Cranstone, he's out on circuit at the moment, finding himself, at least based on the practice times, in 8th position. So we will see how he's able to carry on. Another driver that we need to have a look for is a driver that's really been on form, not out on circuit at the moment, but we will definitely see him in a few minutes' time once qualifying gets underway, and it is Lewis Ward, who had 2 absolutely stunning drives, didn't he, last time out in those changeable conditions at Donington Park.
Yeah, he really did. Had a fantastic time at Donny. Really showed everybody what he has got. And we've seen him win championships before, so, you know, to have a multiple winner on one night in the sprint racing was just epic. And for it to be Lewis was very, very fitting. We've got Jamie Pounder currently in 3rd position at the moment. He's going really well in this present stage of practice. The Aston Martin seemingly going well, with 4 of them actually inside the top 10, which is really good. It is one of the cars to be in at certain circuits, but Ayrton Williams and Nils Kaur really making it look good at the moment. The two of them separated by less than half a tenth of a second. But this circuit, it demands a car that eats curbs, really, doesn't it? As Simon Povey has a big old clout into the barrier. But it really does require a car that munches curbs, doesn't it, Zolder? Because it's got a few of them.
Yeah, it really does. So the McLarens, I don't think, will be the favoured car around here. We know that McLaren is very sort of stiffly set up, doesn't like hitting the curbs at all, whereas we just were on board with Benedict Abdullahi's BMW. Didn't really seem to mind them too much. It bounced around, but didn't react too unhappily. You can just see the way the different drivers having to approach the corners in different ways. Actually, Benedict Abdullahi, he's right behind. It's the 54 of Lee Berridge, the highest position, at least based on the practice times, of those McLarens.
Interesting to see the McLaren not as potent as it has been before, actually. There's a good mix of the cars. There's only one Porsche, actually. Well, there's only 2 Porsches on track tonight. Heinz Mayer is the other one. Heinz, one of the championship sponsors, of course. We thank the wonderful people at Orris Digital, Crockery Direct, Derbyshire Holiday Homes and Bespoke Shelters for their sponsorship of the sim racing magazine GT4 Challenge. But yeah, only 2 Porsches. So, oh no, sorry, 3 Porsches. I can't count. Toby Ward is driving one as well. Sorry, Toby. But again, we have a massive spread of talent in the field here. Dominic Brennan just down in 20th position. But then again, it's Dom. He's probably only just bought the track 5 minutes before we went live.
Yeah, well, really typical of Dom Brennan, but he still can adapt very quickly, can't he, to a lot of these circuits. A driver that doesn't necessarily put the most amount of practice in, but the time he spends on the circuit certainly more than makes up for it. We'll have to see how he gets through the racing here tonight, but like I said, it's been great to see drivers all up and down the championship as well, having some great results. We've had, I can't remember now, Chaz, the statistics, but we've had so many different drivers on the podium, so many different race winners as well. But it was a testament to how competitive the seasons have been that multiple champion Lewis Ward had only been able to get his first race victory last time out, and he got 2 of them in one night. So it's definitely something to keep our eyes open for. But as well, speaking of the characteristics of the circuit, you want a car that can really hit the curbs. It's 3 Aston Martins in those top 3 spaces. One of them here, Nils Kaur for Satellite Racing, getting along very well indeed. And actually, Ayrton Williams up there, making it Satellite 1-2.
Yeah, they're absolutely smashing it at the moment, the Satellite Racing team. Obviously, the reigning champion, Nils Kaur, certainly, I was going to say back on form, but he's had a bit of an up and down season so far with just 3 podiums. No race victories yet to his name. So he's not had the easiest of times of it, to say the least. Simon Povey only has 2 podium finishes. Simon hasn't scored points in the last 4 races. He has not scored in a long time, since round 6 at the Nürburgring, where he finished 2nd at the time, I think it was. No, round 6 was not the Nürburgring, was it? Round 6 was at Lebanon. He finished 2nd, and that's the race where he was leading, and he backed off over the line because he thought it was the last lap of the race. So since then, he hasn't scored any points at all. It's crazy to think. It's good to have Matthias Tem back with us as well. Matthias in the Fury Simsport Mercedes. He's currently the fastest non-Aston Martin at the moment. So he's certainly back on form at least. He'll be looking forward to having a good old scrap with the drivers around here. But the session is about to tick over now. Any questions asked about qualifying will certainly be of the Aston Martins. Whether they can put down the one-lap pace again and whether they can hold on to that during the race will be another thing to be seen. We're going to look to the pit lane, and we will see Matt Slight, even though his teammate's not here. I knew it. I knew Matt Slight was going to be one of the ones to get out first. And there's the rest of the field grumbling their way down. Look at this lot.
Yeah, I think as well, the position where the cars find themselves on the sort of run out of the pit lane is based on the time they join the session. So the earlier you join the session, the further along in the pit lane you'll be. So you'll be closer to basically the start, or basically the end of the pit lane if you join the session right away. So he's the first one into the session and also the first one back out onto the circuit. Lovely shot though, isn't it, of all of those cars getting out onto the circuit. Does mean it will see a lot of traffic congestion, which on a circuit like Zolder is going to be very, very tricky to contend with, because it's not necessarily the widest of circuits, and it's also very much just a one-line track. If you find yourself thrown offline, having to overtake some cars maybe on slower laps, or just try to get out of the way of cars on hot laps, it's going to be tricky. As you can see, Drew Fletcher, a perfect illustration of the congestion out on the circuit, because he's right in the midst of it all.
Look at all of these cars, so much traffic, everybody trying to overtake everybody at this point. We've got Matthias Tem just in front of him, then I think it's Ayrton Williams in the Aston Martin, it is, trying to get back up the order. Then we've got one of the Prestanda Nomad cars, that's Tom Stanley in car 961. Cars all over the place. I love this chicane, by the way. You can take so much curb down there and get away with it in these cars. Can you believe the Goodyear FIA European Truck Racing Championship races at this circuit as well? It was a hell of a race meeting this year, as it always is. But we've even raced here in the wet before as well. You can imagine what that looks like.
Yeah, I dread to think those big beefy bricks. I mean, they've got good brakes, but I still think in the wet that'd be absolutely terrifying. Even these GT4s on the sim in the wet look like they're a handful, so I dread to think what those trucks would be like. But here we go, drivers getting ready for their first flying laps. Drew Fletcher with a great little bit of help in front of him, actually. That's one of the best cars to have punching a hole in the air for you, isn't it? A big brick of a BMW. One of the last times we'll see that BMW, of course. It's been replaced by the sort of the newer model of the GT4.
Yeah, the G82. Awful.
Yeah, of course. It's got that differently shaped sort of front grille that has divided a lot of opinion. More people dislike it than like it. I'm definitely in the minority there, but to be honest, it's still a wonderful car to drive. And even the sim, it doesn't sound too dissimilar to the current model we have, but there's a sort of a little nuance to it that I find is quite nice.
Well, that's the thing. It's a potent race car. It's done very, very well in the British GT Championship and their GT4 categories over in IMSA as well. It's been an absolute powerhouse of a car. It's just one of those machines, you know. BMW always make good race cars, and they always do it well out of bigger cars, which is always quite exciting to see. We look at the likes of the M6 GT3, the M8 GTE, even the Z4 ended up being a big car when it was turned into a GT3 car. So it's BMW's proven formula.
Yeah, that's such an edge on the Z4, just being surprisingly a lot bigger than its road counterpart. Well, just looking at the way that BMW tends to do things, while the cars are sort of in a big body shape, they strip so much out of them to get them into a competitive weight. So while they look rather big and bulky, they're anything but underneath all of that bodywork, as we see the first few times come through. And to the top of the timing sheets, as is, well, something we're getting increasingly familiar with over this sort of midway point of the season, Jake Cranstone is certainly looking like the driver to beat based on the one lap pace. But you know, drivers are definitely getting up there with him. Ayrton Williams, not a million miles away, 1.5 tenths shy of pole position. Waiting to see as well what a lot of those other quick Aston Martin runners were doing. Where's Niels Kaur? He's only good enough for 12th at this moment in time.
We've got Jamie Pounder.
Here we are.
Heading around. Lewis Ward goes quickest now. Simon Povey goes third fastest. Just checking as well, Jake Cranstone hasn't taken a pole position this season, actually. Hasn't been on pole at all. so far in Season 5, which really intrigues me. There's a number of drivers that haven't set laps yet that I expect to see right up there. Jamie Pounder and Tom Stanley in the Prestanda Nomad Aston Martins were going well. Dan McCauley had a good run back at Donington Park, but it's his teammate Lewis Ward that is currently quickest at the moment. No wet conditions for Lewis to shine in here. This is purely sunshine. You can hear the cars smacking those curbs, and you can hear the compression and the bangs and biffs coming from them as they leave the corners down towards the chicane. Let's go on board with Lewis, give you an idea of what the chicane looks like from in the car, and you can see just how bumpy it is, but they can almost completely cut the thing. It's crazy, isn't it, really?
It's bonkers, just the different lines you can take. You need to be very careful though, just because of the track limits, and through those chicanes they sort of lure you in to take as much of the inside curve as possible, but that really can prove to be your undoing. Look how tight it is between Jake Cranstoun and Simon Povey, up close to the front row. There's more times coming through. Guy Edwards and Callum Brandt, the fastest of the McLarens. Zayton Williams jumps up into second place. Lewis Ward staying up in first. Jake Cranstoun's last lap time I didn't think was an improvement, or at least not seemingly enough to get up onto the front row anymore. Zayton Williams is now alongside Lewis Ward. Lewis Ward comes over the line, doesn't improve, but that lap time shows that he was definitely backing off. Good 3 seconds slower than his previous effort. So I think he's gearing up for a big push now.
Might have been trying to help his teammate Dan McCauley with some slipstream as well, as Zayton Williams still sits second fastest, 45 thousandths off the top spot. Incredibly close. You have to go all the way down to flipping heck, maybe Don Brennan, no, Lee Berridge, to actually see a time that is over a second off the top spot. So shows you how close it all is. John Roberts has just had a moment and gone back to the pits. I think he's just pulled over to one side slightly and left it there. Chris Jennings is about to complete a lap time. He's got one on the board at the moment that's good for 22nd, which is his car number, but pulling over to one side, and that's going to ruin his run onto the next lap as well. Whether he's just going to go back to the pits or not, I'm unsure, but seemingly carrying on. May as well, because you burnt the fuel, I suppose.
Yeah, taking a couple laps as well, just to make sure that the temperature is warmed into the tyres gradually instead of taking a lot of the grip and the rubber off of them. So that could be a potential plan for him as well. He does sacrifice a lot of session time in doing so. There's not a whole lot of that left, just under 8 minutes to go. Obviously the drivers, because this is a sort of single race format, are able to finish the laps that they're on rather than the heat formats that we've been seeing recently, where they basically, once they complete a lap, or once they're on a lap and that session ticks over, they're not able to complete it. This is Matthias Tem looking to put his first time of the session onto the board, but doesn't seem to be able to get a valid time through. Simon Povey now goes to the top of the time sheets there with a very impressive lap time, making it a Mercedes 1-2. Simon just up ahead of a driver we've seen him have many battles with over the seasons, Lewis Ward, and what a tasty front row that'll be if the session stays as it is.
Niels Core is still down in 24th position as Lee Berridge has a spin just in front of him. Of no concern to Niels this time, but you can see the car wiggling around, not really behaving itself. Now it is going to be tight on fuel for some of these cars tonight, I'm told. We've obviously reduced the fuel limit, as we've mentioned a few times before, and last time at Donington Park. But for those of you that weren't aware, the championship usually runs a fuel limit of about 40%, so the drivers don't get a full tank of fuel. But as of a recent vote and a change brought in for the second half of the season, the tanks are now capped at 33% to take out so much of a chunk that it's almost impossible to do a one-stop, and it almost guarantees two stops. But here, and at some circuits, it's nearly a three-stop if you're not careful, so drivers do still have to save a little bit and make sure they can make it to the end. So there's still some strategy involved. It spices it up and gives them something different. Niels Core, 6th fastest now, Ed, after that improvement. Don Brennan improves up to just 15th place. He's not really had the rub of the green when it comes to qualifying this season.
No, he hasn't, unfortunately, but we know he more than makes up for it in the races, and I'm not sure if Zolder's one of the most renowned circuits for overtaking, but I definitely think that if any driver can try and make some places up, it would be the likes of Dominic Brennan. Also potentially as well a driver that hasn't necessarily gotten a time on the board yet that we're expecting to see make one very soon is Matthias Tem. He's a driver we know likes a little bit of an overtake and a bit of action as well, so we'll see what he can do. if he can get a time on the board, it'll definitely need to come sooner rather than later, as we do only have 5.5 minutes left in the session, Chaz.
Yeah, indeed, it's getting to crunch time now. Still nothing from Tem as he heads round the end of the first sector, gives a bit of a flash of the lights to Dennis Van Beelen just so he knows he's coming through. Hard onto the brakes into the Mercedes, or in the Mercedes I should say. Hops one way then the other over the crest of the hill down towards what is known as the Villeneuve chicane. The drivers were, well, some of them were taking the mick out of us earlier, saying that we probably wouldn't be able to say a lot of the corner names around this circuit, but it's basically the word bocht, sort of means turn or corner in Belgian, so it's very clear that bocht will be at the end of all these words. We're just about to head down into the Boulderberg bocht now, which is the final hairpin on the circuit. There's one or two very tight corners that can be classed as hairpins, but it's actually, its full name apparently, according to Toby Ward, is Boulderberg Harshbelt bocht, but I don't believe him. I've still got it as Boulderberg bocht on the track maps that I can see. The Jackie X bocht, which is the final chicane. There's also the Sterrenwacht bocht, the Canal bocht, and the Lucien Bianchi bocht. There's also Kleiner chicane, Sacrament Schelling. There's the hill down to the second chicane is just called Butt, which I find very amusing because I'm 12 years old mentally. But we have a time on the board now for Matthias Tem, away from talking about silly corner names.
Yeah, we got there through there. Yeah, some of these circuits are very difficult to pronounce with the corner names, but it's easy when sort of you come to these circuits because most of them are just something bocht.
Yes.
And bocht is obviously as reference towards corner, essentially. As we can now see drivers getting right into the sort of the crunch time phase, isn't it, of qualifying, where they do push a little bit more. It does mean sometimes that they run a little bit more foul of the track limits, just trying to chase those few tenths here and there, mainly through those chicanes. I think the Jackie X bocht, that sort of final section, is one where drivers definitely can fall foul of it because it's right that make or break point of the circuit.
Yeah, it really is. There's a lot of sections on this track that are hyper important to lap time. Some really pivotal corners. Not many improvements coming in now, actually, with just 3 minutes left. Callum Brandt doing really well up there at the moment in 4th position, just ahead of Jake Cranstone. Ayrton Williams goes second fastest, just less than a tenth of a second off of Simon Povey. So Ayrton once again flying near the top. He's right up there in the championship as well, is Ayrton. Doing a really good job. He's actually tied on points with his teammate Nils right now. The two of them on 128 points. Ayrton with a race win to his name this season. Nils with 2 pole positions, the only driver so far to take pole position more than once. It's so close inside the top 10. As all the boosted cars are together apparently. Toby Ward, John Barnes, Lee Berridge. There's a few cars then back to John Roberts. Where's the...
Callum Brandt really just monstered through that chicane actually.
Yeah.
Just properly threw it through. But it's what you need to do with that Kleiner chicane because you've still got a lot of speed to carry out of that, don't you? Through the sort of, well, the long left-hander that is just called butt or boot.
Yeah, it's probably boot. But it's just me being silly, I think, to call it butt.
So we can call it butt if you want, Chaz. I think it'll be fine.
Just looking to see if there's... No, there's nothing really that we can take the mick out of elsewhere on the circuit. Guy Edwards improves up into 7th place for RD Simsport. Good to have the RD guys back tonight. They just had other commitments elsewhere for the Donington round, and we did miss them. Jake Cranstone now goes 4th fastest, 3 tenths off the top spot. But look at that, all the way down to 17th position, less than a second between them. We've got the latest livery for Ben Chalcraft as Niels Kaur goes 2nd, less than a tenth. Abdullahi goes 7th. Flipping heck, the times are flying in now. This is the Saltaire Blonde livery by Ben Chalcraft for this week's flavour. Really do like this one. It's obviously a Belgian blonde, which is a very famous type of alcoholic beverage, as we say. The Belgians do some scary beers, actually, to be honest. I remember when I was first working with David Addison and good friends with him, he was showing me La Chouffe and the Chouffe Brewery, which is Nome in Belgium. They have things like the Nice Chouffe, the Blonde Chouffe, and yeah, a number of very small but very potent beers. And I think the Winter Warmer Chouffe, which is Nice Chouffe, is something like 10%. It's just ridiculous. It's like, honestly, a hangover in a bottle. It's unreal. But they do love them.
That Ian Pope we just saw for a moment there going underneath the bridge through Zucker and Schelling just facing the wrong way. He's now coming back up the circuit. This was what happened, and it was actually coming together between himself and Jake Cranstone.
Yeah, Jake just lost the back end through the chicane, it seems. Oh, he's had a wobble on the exit. Let's try and see what's happened there to Jake, shall we? So he's gone through. Oh, he's absolutely overdone it, and then he's overcorrected. Oh, it's the tiniest touch on Ian's car. It's a colossal impact for the pair of them. But there really is a big pinch point up there on that part of the track, so you have to be careful, don't you?
Yeah, you do. It's so easy as well if a car has a mistake up in front of you and has a moment like that, lost control. Difficult to know exactly where it's going to go. Ben Idris Abdullahi, I think, is one of the final drivers to start a flying lap before the checkered flag falls. Just over the line, actually, comes, I think that is Ben Chalcraft, just not able to improve, staying in 17th place. And I think that's his session completed. I don't know if he was able to get across in time for another lap.
Don't think so. We've got Jamie Pounder and Simon Povey, the next two cars. Simon not improving much on this lap. He's got one green sector so far. Will he make the final one his personal best? No, he will not. Does he improve overall, though? No. So Simon is very close to his time. Jamie Pounder across the line next. What does he manage to do? He goes all the way up to 5th place. Brilliant stuff from Jamie Pounder. Great time indeed. Toby Johns also improves. 19th, does not gain a place. What about Lewis Ward? He is not on a fast lap there. He's decided to back out of that one. He moves out of the way because Guy Edwards is coming through. And then Matt Slight in the BMW. Guy's going into the pits, practicing his pit entry. That's something we spoke about before we went live, isn't it, Ed? That pit entry is so important here.
Yeah, especially as well when you're in the midst of a big pack battling. You don't really want to be going straight on into the pits if you're thinking a car is going to be taking the normal traditional line, because they brake right ahead of you, ahead of the run into pit lane, whereas the other drivers, they go basically just straight on, not considering the corner whatsoever. Very similar to Montreal, isn't it, Chaz? The pit entry line there, because you go basically from the racing line and the braking zone, you just got to basically plow straight on it. Sometimes catches us out as commentators. I remember actually it was when we were watching and commentating on the virtual bell car, Chaz, whenever we'd see drivers go into the pits, they'd sort of catch us off guard because they'd seem to make a mistake, go straight on, then go, oh no, they're just coming into the pits.
Yeah, it looked like they were having a massive accident, and to be fair, you've got to be careful though, because when you are behind another car really closely, you have to really be very considerate to the fact that they may be braking and you might not be if you're trying to carry speed into there. So yeah, you have to at least compromise a little bit of your time when you come into the pit lane here at Zolder. But that will be qualifying completed, and Simon Povey will take his 2nd pole position of the season. He needs that because that is the first point he's scored in a while. He's on 70 points at the moment, 110 off Taylor Adams. A big shame not to have Taylor here with us this evening for this round of the championship, but it's one of those things, unfortunately. The guys are all screaming for drop rounds. I hate the idea of them, but obviously with a longer season like this, it must be the case at some point that they do come in. I do think about it, guys. I do think about it, I promise. Promise. Love you all. So, Simon Povey and Nils Kaur, what a front row that is. The two of them separated by just over half a tenth of a second, and what a great battle that's going to be to begin the race. Ayrton Williams is alongside Lewis Ward, double champion on the 2nd row of the grid. Jamie Pounder in the Prestanda Nomad Aston Martin goes 5th ahead of Jake Cranstone, with Ben Idris Abdullahi's BMW alongside Callum Brandt's McLaren. Dan McCauley is next up with his sparring partner Guy Edwards. Tom Stanley and Matthias Tem make up the 6th row of the grid. We then have Dennis Van Beelen and Matt Slight alongside each other, with Stephen Codman and Ian Pfeiffer in the 2 Mercedes. Ben Chalcraft and Dominic Brennan in the 2 BMWs are next up, and then it's Toby Johns and Stephen Burns who complete the top 20. Mark Johnson is next up with Ryan Penny alongside him. Toby Ward and John Barnes make up the 12th row of the grid. We then have John Roberts and Lee Berridge, 2 teammates, ahead of Chris Jennings and Drew Fletcher. Heinz Mayer and Martin Kenyon complete the top 30 drivers, with Kim Such and Simon Price 31st and 32nd. We didn't actually look at Simon Price's livery before now. You can't really see it from back here either, so what I'll do is try and skip forward to... whose car is that? Is that Drew Fletcher just ahead of him? You can sort of see it from there. It's one of the McVitie's gold bars for this week, because he's got the Lunchbox Legends liveries that he's doing. It's all snacks and wonderful food. But yeah, Simon running the gold bars for this week. But another very colourful and beautiful grid here, Ed. Loads of cars to look at. Satellite Racing doing really well, obviously, near the front of the order with 2 cars inside the top 3. Could they potentially work together here? Because, I mean, we've got a lot of different teams dispersed through the top 10, so pays to be close together from the very start, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does, as we go now for a full pace lap, so it's going to be a lot of time for drivers to try and get some heat into their tyres, but they can't do too much weaving just because at areas of this circuit it does become very tight and narrow. But what a front row. Like you said, Simon Povey getting his first point in, well, a long old time, which is not what we're used to saying for Simon whatsoever. He's, I think, one of the best to ever do it in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Alongside, well, the best of last season, wasn't it? Nils Core, another driver who's going to be looking for better results and to maybe try and mount a late championship charge. I think he is one of the sort of nearest challengers, isn't he, to Jake Cranstone. If we consider potentially I was missing out on a few rounds, it's just so difficult, isn't it, to try and keep up over the course of a season such as this. And it is a shame that we won't have Taylor Adams for every single round, but regardless, it does mean that we are going to be in for a great season with drivers like Taylor Adams that don't really have a lot to lose and everything to try and gain.
Yeah, absolutely. Really looking forward to seeing what approach Taylor takes when he comes back, how cutthroat he's going to be with it. And you know, you get that with drivers. If they do miss a round of the championship, they do have to come into it and be absolutely brutal, be completely ruthless on their way back in. I'm just thinking here, Ed, I don't think it'll be too surprising to see some drivers taking it very easy on this first lap here, you know, on this warm-up lap or formation lap, whatever you want to call it. You can hear, listen, Stephen Burns has dipped the clutch because some of them know that it's going to be close here. It's going to be very, very close. We've got different liveries, of course, for the top of the pops guys. The Metallica It's Electric livery for this week. I'm not quite sure what the link is, actually. I didn't see it. I
think I saw the link, and it's because they've got a lot of the solar panels now around the circuit modelled into iRacing. So he's going to be trying to ride the lightning through for a great result if he can pull it off. Stephen, he's had some great races over the course of the season, so who's to say this wouldn't be another one for him here tonight. Chaz, we're just moments away though from getting this race underway here, and look at Simon Povey. He's already trying the best he can do to get some heat into those tyres. Nils Core, very sort of Kimmy-esque, just keeping it straight, not worrying about what everyone else is doing. And soon he'll need to start focusing a little bit more on what everyone in behind and from front will be, because the green flag will drop in just a moment.
Absolutely will. They head into the Jackie Ixbocht, and as they come out the final corner, Simon Povey guns it, and round number 11 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge gets underway from Zolder, and already Simon's given them a good old battle to have behind. He's left the two satellite cars together to fight with Lewis Ward, and he keeps it nice and tidy round turn one. The rest of them doing the exact same. Good stuff from them. Is there a little bit of contact and shenanigans in there? Looked like Stephen Burns and Toby Johns were close together. Great start, though, for Nils Core as well. He stayed with Simon through the first couple of corners. Ayrton Williams under a little bit of pressure now from behind. Dan McCauley and Callum Brandt trying to fight each other there too. They've got Ben Idris Abdullahi just in front. Dan just tickling the back of the McLaren, but we'll go on board with him and see just how little you can see down to the chicane. There could be all manner of chaos in front of you, and it's so difficult to know.
Yeah, you don't have a lot of time to react if there is an accident up ahead of you, as we do see drivers looking for moves up the inside, but not really committing to it at this early stage. I say that. Luke, who's diving up the inside, it's boosted on boosted.
They're good at that.
Gets tipped around, I think, by, is that Ward?
Toby Ward. Lee Berridge sends it up the inside. He goes across the nose of his teammate, and that's all she wrote. Well, we do joke that they're good at that at boosted, and all they've done is prove us right, unfortunately. But Chris Jennings there having a look down the inside of John Roberts doesn't come to fruition. Jamie Pounder having to defend from Jake Cranstone. Oof, goes across the front of the Porsche. Simon Povey, I think, has had a slowdown penalty. Simon has moved out of the way, and suddenly it's a satellite racing 1-2. Nils Core takes the race lead, and Williams into second place. Simon moves over slightly to say to Lewis, look, I've served it now. Don't worry about me. You need to go forward. There's a good battle. Oh, that's Tem. Tem losing the back end on the way into the chicane. I was trying to click on the cars in front of that. Guy Edwards and Dan McCauley having another ding-dong. But Matthias Tem just clips the grass there. It's all kicking off, Ed.
Yes, Edwards and Brandt as well, the two teammates for RD Simsport, as I think Edwards is going up the inside on Callum Brandt. Is Callum giving him the space potentially? Or is that maybe a mistake because he's lost a lot of time? And been pitched around. contact into the side. That was Dan McCauley. I don't really think he did anything too egregious. It was just Callum Brandt, as he was coming back onto the circuit, the car, I guess, rejoining at that speed is very unpredictable. We'll see, it's just over the bumps, and then, ooh.
Oof.
I say that, there's definitely movement from both of them into that same area of the circuit.
Yeah, I think Dan goes to the right to sort of maybe cover off where Callum could rejoin, not knowing that he was still going to be alongside him. That was a really strange one. Oh, Pfeiffer's off and in the wall. Race winner earlier this season. Big hit into the barriers down there at the chicane. Mark Johnson has come to a stop, unfortunately.
That's damage.
Yeah.
A lot of suspension damage there. Needs to be very careful to not get in the way of Chris Jennings, which he, I think, does in the end. A little bit of contact on the way in. Oh, and then it's just right ahead of Matthias. That's going to be a scary moment to have right in front of your face, but Matthias, thankfully, doesn't seem to bear the brunt of any of that and can carry on. Another position gain, chalk that one off and keep on moving up. Moving back has been Simon Povey since the start of the race, and it's that little error, wasn't it, earlier? I don't know exactly where he picked up that slowdown. Could have been maybe just the only place I can think of is Villeneuve chicane, but even then it would be very strong indeed. Maybe it was just a mistake coming out of a corner. Not really sure, Chaz.
No, it's a really strange one, that, because he served it really late, if that was the case. I would have thought he'd had to have served it by then, so not sure. We've got Dennis Van Beelen here with Dominic Brennan next to him. Dom round the outside in the BMW. He's overtaken him for P13 there. So Dom moving up the order slightly, a couple of places gained. 5 places so far. Ryan Penny has done the same. Biggest mover in the field so far, Chris Jennings. He's gained 6 spots in his Mercedes, the privateer for this season. I really do like this silver car. It just looks really tasty. He's got the spec map right as well, so the actual stickers are still just glossy and not metallic. As here's a battle. Lewis Ward, Simon Povey and Ayrton Williams. A little bit of contact almost over the hill. No, they get away with it, but Lewis Ward has gone through. I think Simon maybe had to check up as Lewis says, no, don't come back down the inside here, Simon. I'll have that, thank you. Lewis is a man possessed now. Yeah. He's absolutely back on form.
I was just about to say, Chaz, you took the words right out of my mouth. He is looking like a man on a mission here. He looked very strong actually in qualifying in the very early phase, but just wasn't able to get the lap strung together when the car would have been at its quickest. But now it's all sort of everyone's in the same boat in race conditions. We know how good his race pace is as well. We saw it illustrated brilliantly both in the dry and in the wet conditions at Donington Park. As a bit of a blink in and out just up ahead of Lewis. That's not going to do him any favours whatsoever with Ayrton Williams' connection. But look at how much Lewis is moving around, just filling the mirrors, just letting Ayrton know that he is going to be there and he is looking to come through sooner rather than later. This was what happened earlier, but just a big moment over the curbs. In fact, I think the pair of them, both Ayrton and Simon, not getting the greatest of runs, and Lewis takes great advantage, gets through on Simon, moves to the inside just to cover off any sort of fight back.
Ayrton overcooked it.
Ooh, yeah.
Ayrton overdoes it. Simon has to get out of it, take a compromise line, and then Lewis says, yeah, go on then. And a bit of that, thank you. I love a freebie.
Like a vulture, just picks up the scraps and just moves on with his day. Now needs to focus, though, on those 2 Aston Martins up ahead if he wants to make it 3 wins from 3. I don't think we've had a driver get 3 wins on the bout, so I don't know if we've had a driver win more than twice this season. It's a testament to how competitive it has been.
I think Taylor Adams has got 2 wins. Taylor's got 3. Jake Cranstone's got 2. Lewis Ward is the only other driver with more than 1 victory. So yeah, it's not been something that's been common this season. No. In previous seasons, there's only ever been sort of 2 or 3 drivers that have won races. But looking at it so far this season, we've had 6 different race winners.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6.
Very rarely do we see drivers get 3 on the row.
No, exactly. Lewis Ward wants that 3 in a row, but it's this man at the moment. Nils Kaur hasn't taken a race win yet this season, but back to the lead of the race. He will be very happy to have nobody in front of him. His teammate doing a great job behind him as well to potentially hold back the floodgates as Simon Povey does the fastest lap of the race. There's more battles going on back here. Drew Fletcher, Heinz Mayer, Callum Brandt trying to recover from his earlier debacle. That was a big hit with Dan, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely a big whack. It seems to be fine, at least suspension-wise, but I don't know if that has maybe done a little bit of damage underlying to sort of the air underneath the car. There's a little bit of sort of deformation on that rear sort of, I think, rear left-hand side, which could be holding him up as well in terms of being able to properly attack the corners. Here's Ryan Penny going for a little bit of a battle, isn't it, between himself and I think that is Stephen Codman just getting back through up on the inside. Ben Chalcraft's going to look to try and take advantage of this. Two BMWs going at it now in towards chicane, but big sort of face full of BMW bumper for Ben Chalcraft at that moment, as he has to essentially settle for 19th at this moment.
Yeah, it's a real pinch point of the circuit. These chicanes can be a huge drawback sometimes for drivers. You have to compromise so much, as Heinz Mayer has to compromise loads there with Lee Berridge. They remain side by side. There's almost a touch on the exit as well. They're going to get slowdown penalties from that. Kim Such wants to come through as well. Martin Kenyon and Mark Johnson have both dropped a number of places. Mark Johnson had a drama earlier on in the race. Didn't quite see that, but he's dropped 11 spots from earlier, unfortunately. There's literally battles everywhere once again here, Ed, as we have now a change for second place. Lewis Ward down the inside of Ayrton Williams. Doesn't manage to get it completely done, though. That outside line at turn 1 works really well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And then it's these next couple of corners where once you've got the inside line, it's so difficult to sort of lose out from there. You have such a great advantage because it's just right-handers all the way over to the next chicane, which is the other real big overtaking opportunity. Simon Povey just watching him behind. Lewis with a slight run on Ayrton, but I don't think he's going to try anything from this far back. So I'm just going to have to watch and wait for these two to scrap, and then it could be his turn to try and pick up the pieces. But all it takes is for one little mistake, and suddenly the driver hunting down can become the hunted, and Simon just has to really focus on his consistency and be ready to pounce should either of those two make one little misstep. Speaking of missteps, there's been none coming through, have they, for Nils Court? Over the last few laps, he's really been able to build a bit more of an advantage. It was 2 seconds, now 2.6. Currently 2.5 between Nils and Ayrton for now. Yeah, and doing everything he can to help out his teammate, while also having to think about his own race, because he knows that when we get to the pit stops, that track position could be very important.
Absolutely. He's doing everything right at the moment. We've got a good scrap going on here, but John Barnes has just had to give up a place to his teammate John Roberts as Callum Brandt side by side with Drew Fletcher. Drew goes deep into the hairpin as a result. Lee Berridge gets in on the action as well, as McLaren's everywhere. Drew's going to hate the look of the 570S by the end of this race. He's having a good old time staring at a lot of them, and they're all matte black ones as well, as he goes back down the inside of Callum Brandt. Nearly makes contact, the two of them really close together. Lee Berridge now gets his nose down the inside. Not much room there on the exit, as door to door down the start finish straight. Lee gives him a little bit back, says no thank you. Down towards the first corner, late on the brakes, as Drew has to really slam it on. Lee's just come across him, I think, there. Tried to squeeze him to the inside. John Barnes is around as well. What on earth has happened to Boosted? Let's have a look. I don't know. Lee comes over a bit to squeeze him, but then Drew's just sort of hanging off that left rear quarter the whole time. And then John Barnes, I think, just spun on his own in front of them.
Yeah, it's not really needed either. Just think of how much time's left to go in this race. They hadn't even done 10 minutes by that point. No. And they were already racing like it was nearly the last lap of a race. It was not exactly the best thing to do when you've got teammates around you. As Ayrton Williams on this last lap has actually been gaining a little bit on Nils Court. We'll see the times when they come over the line, but it's only shrunk down a 2.5 second gap to now 2.2 seconds as we come in towards Jackie Xbox. And we're pulling away a little bit from Lewis Ward on this last lap, but nothing to really give him any sort of comfort. As look at that fastest lap for Ayrton Williams. No slipstream, no nothing, but Lewis Ward pretty much matches his time alongside him. That was actually with the pair of them, I think, trying to battle out a little bit earlier, wasn't it, in towards turn 1.
Yeah, indeed, as down the inside of Jamie Pounder finally goes Jake Cranstone. He's been working on that for so long, trying to get by the Aston Martin, and the little Porsche finally prevails. But Jamie's been doing a great job up there. He qualified really well in 5th position. He's held on to it for now. Prestanda Nomad going well round here tonight. Tom Stanley's in 11th position at present. But yeah, really, really good stuff from all of these guys inside the top 5. Ayrton Williams has been defending fantastically from Lewis Ward. They've both got Simon Povey sat behind them as well. Such a high-pressure environment this inside this top 5. So much to think about, and the thing is, you cannot put one foot wrong or you are at a massive disadvantage instantly, even in the pit stops as well. Got to think about fuel numbers too. We are going to see 2 stops tonight. We know that much. Some drivers might have to go to 3 stops if they are not too careful on the fuel, which is, I mean, semi-ridiculous, but we'll see. I think the car just in front of these guys is Mark Johnson in the Williams Mercedes. It is indeed. But these guys all creeping up on them. You can see the drivers behind: Jake Cranstone, Jamie Pounder, Ben Idris Abdullahi, Guy Edwards and Dan McCauley. Then with a bit of a gap back to Matthias Tem. He's got Tom Stanley for company. Then Don Brennan, who's gained 6 places so far. Stephen Burns has gained 6 as well. He's going well in the BMW. An electric performance, you could say. Who else has gained 6? Chris Jennings, Kim Such, Simon Price has gained 5 places. He's going for gold, you could say, in the gold bar thing machine. I know it's awful, isn't it? Sorry. But
you can't have 2 in that quick session. That's
I could with gold bars. I could have 2 gold bars that quickly. They are amazing.
They are. See, I'm more a fan of a club. I think if we get a club in, I'm
Don't say orange.
very happy with that. I like the mint ones.
Yes, thank you. Oh yeah, the mint
I
ones.
I don't usually like a minty chocolate. But
no, I don't. But the club ones they're spot on.
I think it's the biscuit in there that really sort of balances it, mellows it out, so it's not like you're eating toothpaste. It's very nice. Anyway, confectionery aside, this has been a very sweet start to the race for Nils Core. It's been great. It's maybe fallen a little bit by the wayside because Ayrton has certainly caught up over these past few laps. Does Nils maybe have a problem? Has he had to serve a slowdown penalty, or was it maybe just a case of the traffic playing its part? Because he has dropped back nearly probably half a second by the looks of things over this last lap. We'll see the proper lap times when they come up to the line, but this has not been a very good time for Nils Core on that last lap.
Out of the final corner he goes then. Let's see what he's got in the tank here. 1:35.08 is his best. 1:35.8 to the 1:35.0 of Ayrton Williams. Lewis Ward does his fastest lap of the race as well, 34.9. Cranstone does his best. Guy Edwards does his best too. So there's a lot of personal bests flying in here. And this is getting mighty spicy at the front of the gap now. Just 1.5 seconds. Ayrton Williams, though, he's bringing Lewis Ward and Simon Povey with him here. That's the thing. It's very, very tentative stuff from Ayrton. I was just looking at the Teams Championship as well. Let's not forget, there's not much between Regenta Sim Racing and Satellite Racing Blue. Satellite Racing Blue on for an almost perfect score from tonight, especially with first and second in the race. You can only get 1 point better than that, and Simon Povey took pole position, so he's done that. But they will gain a lot of points over Regenta with the fact that Taylor Adams is not here, and Matt Slight can only muster 13th position at the moment, and he's not really in any fights to improve that at the present moment.
No, not with how it stands at the current point. Matt Slight is definitely not the same driver we've seen over the course of this season, but again, it's maybe just a case of the circuit not suiting the BMW. Ben Idris Abdullahi is the highest position driver of the German manufacturer, currently up in 7th place, and even then we've seen him up there fighting for podiums, haven't we, before other circuits. So maybe it's just a case that for whatever reason the track is not really working out for the BMWs here tonight as it has done at previous rounds. Careful there, just trying to get through some of that slower traffic. Mark Johnson doing the best he can do in the Williams Mercedes to not make a nuisance of himself.
Williams has lost second.
He has, actually, yes, you're right. A lot. 2 places gone down.
Yeah, Ayrton Williams has somehow lost that there. I was just checking the points again just to try and figure out who needs to do what. Has he had a moment? Yeah, he's gone too hot into the chicane, gets into the ABS, has to park it, so Lewis has to back out of it as well. He does what he can to not completely cut the chicane there, does Ayrton, but loses 2 spots in the process, and now he finds himself in between. Ooh, I was going to say in between, but no, behind Simon Povey and Lewis Ward, and this is perfect for one man in particular, and that man drives an orange Porsche. His name is Jake Cranstone. He's going to go into the championship lead if he just scores 2 points tonight, and right now he's putting himself in amongst the fight for a potential podium where it stands.
Yeah, but Jake knows that he doesn't need to do anything silly. This is a real chance to gain some big ground in an already tight contested championship. It helps him out so much just to settle for 5th place, but we know that that's not what Jake Cranstone's going to do. He loves a good scrap, he loves a battle. If he's going to decide to be conservative, then I don't think that's Jake Cranstone behind the wheel of his sim rig, because we know what he loves to do, and that is go all out from lights to the drop of the checkered flag. Nils Core, though, helped that massively, wasn't it? Inadvertently by Ayrton Williams' mistake, gained him around about 1.5 seconds to the likes of Lewis Ward and Simon Povey chasing him down. But now that Lewis Ward has been unleashed, is that going to start to worry Nils Core a touch? Because Lewis has looked pretty quick all race long and looked like a driver that once he got ahead would maybe try and make some inroads into the lead of our current reigning champion.
Toby John's the first car to head into the pit lane here in the McLaren. The McLaren is potentially the thirstiest of the cars. It is very quick ground here, though. Apparently there's a lot of torque from that car, so gets out of corners well. Now, a worry for Ayrton Williams here is that he's not been able to stay with Simon Povey and Lewis Ward. He's actually fallen back slightly to Jake Cranstone, so instead of trying to regain the positions he's lost, he's more having to stop himself losing another one at the present moment, as Simon's managed to get alongside Lewis Ward here for 2nd place. 3 championships between this pair, and they now head down to the chicane, and Simon gets in front on the brakes. I think Lewis tries to make life a little bit easy there, brakes early, lets Simon through, but now the gap Simon has to Nils Core is 3.4 seconds, so he's certainly still got work to do.
Yeah, music to the ears of Nils Core when he hears that Simon and Lewis have been battling and fighting it out. You'll know that his teammate Ayrton will be relaying that information to him, because that's so important for Nils in terms of how he's able to approach this race, especially when you're having to manage a bit more of the fuel situation with that reduced sort of tank limit that the drivers are having to contend with. As into the pits right away after that little bit of a moment comes Lewis Ward. I think he should be able to just about make it till the end of the race, because he'll spend a bit of time in the pit lane, should be able to come out after 20 minutes worth of running. Drivers might be trying to split up the sort of stints into equal 20-minute chunks, because that basically sees them comfortably able to finish the race on a 2-stop strategy.
We've got other cars coming in as well, as you can see. Dominic Brennan in the BMW, Stephen Codman's Mercedes, Ryan Penny, Ian Pfeiffer, Chris Jennings, Callum Brandt and Drew Fletcher all heading down the pit lane. Looks like Guy Edwards potentially taking tyres as well at the moment. The car has gone up on the jacks, so he's trying to make use of that at this present moment. But the drivers that have remained out there, Nils Core, Simon Povey, even Ayrton Williams, have got a little bit more daylight around them as it stands, so they'll appreciate that for a lap or two, although Jake Cranstone looking very racy just behind. Matthias Tem and Tom Stanley having a good old ding-dong as well. It's been great to see the Prestanda Nomad guys going really well in this round of the season. Good to have Matthias Tem back as well. These guys have been great additions to the grid for this season. A lot of entertainment, good value for money, these boys. But Tom and his teammate, they've not been mucking about, have they? They run a tight ship at Prestanda Nomad, and they do a great job with their social media and making sure that all their drivers are well promoted and so on, and it's great to see that the standard they're driving is just as good. Nils Core into the pit lane now, and I imagine everybody else will do. Yeah,
I think that's basically the longest you can make it, is around about the sort of 39-minute mark. It does make you wonder when we get to a circuit that's a little bit more heavy on the fuel usage, what they'll be able to do, because they'll have to save a lot more. I think Zolder's a circuit where you don't use as much fuel as you would, say, on various other circuits, just because of the amount of corners, the chicanes, the braking zones where you can lift and coast. Other circuits that we've been to, places potentially even like Spa, it would be a lot more of a struggle. You can see Nils Core into the pits at the moment in time. Drivers not seemingly going up onto the jacks to take tyres.
No.
Just basically opting for fuel only.
Wonder whether they'll take tyres in the second stop, or whether anybody will bother with that. First car to get moving is, of course, Nils Core. Jake Cranstone has jumped a lot here. Simon Povey has dropped down a considerable amount. Has he sped in the pit lane or something? Simon Povey still sat there, and Nils Core has a decent advantage, and it's still his teammate behind, importantly.
Yeah, that is a big shame for Simon if he has sped on the way into the pits. Easily done, just because you are carrying a lot of momentum, aren't you, all the way through in towards the sort of pit speed limiter line. Jake Cranstone, though, look at the amount he's gained. Oh no, the pit speed limiter, isn't it, after sort of...
It's after the chicaney bit, isn't it? I'm pretty sure. Simon's been sat there for a minute now, and if it was...
screams.
If it was a slowdown, you get, what, 40 seconds added on?
Something very, very severe for it, and that's going to drop him. Look at that, he's already dropping back out of the points.
Yeah, he's been there for a minute.
Don't tell me Simon's only going to score 1 from tonight after all of that hard work he put in qualifying. It's just not, after that halfway point of the season, it's just not been his season, has it? It hasn't really been a season from the word go. He's been rotten, having some rotten luck, hasn't he? And it's just a case of more little sort of misjudgments more than anything else that are really costing him.
Yeah, very, very frustrating stuff for Simon. And he is still sat in the pits. I'm not quite sure whether he's had the issue when he's come in and he's called it a night already there, but the car is still sat there, unfortunately. That is a big, big shame for the Season 1 champion. It's just not quite come back together for him since then. But right now, things are coming together for Nils Kor. 2.5 seconds clear ahead of his teammate Ayrton Williams, who very much has Jake Cranstone for company. Lewis Ward still in the picture there behind those guys. And then we've got Jamie Pounder. He's had a bit of a lonely race since Jake Cranstone overtook him, but doing a great, great job either way in 5th position. Then it's Ben Idris Abdullahi, then Dan McCauley, and then 3 seconds back to Guy Edwards. Matthias Tem 3.7 seconds back from that. And then Tom Stanley and Dominic Brennan glued to each other once more, just on the outer fringes of the top 10 now. Dom Brennan. Got a battle going on here between, well, I'll say battle, I mean it's 2 cars in one there really. Ian Pfeiffer and Ryan Penny right together. Ian in the Mercedes trying to recuperate some positions that he lost in the early stages. He really did clatter the wall through that chicane. And the Frenchman now trying to gain whatever he can as he looks down the inside of Ryan Penny. Ryan gives him the room down the inside. Ian has a little bit of a slide, so now Ryan's going to have the run down to the chicane. Very feisty stuff this, Ed. You've got to love it as well. Look at that. Ryan says, nope, you're not coming through. Moves over to the right-hand side very decisively.
Love battling like this. I wonder if it is maybe just a case of the different format allowing the drivers to fight just that touch bit more for those on-track positions, because the strategy isn't going to come in too much in terms of fuel saving. Ian Pfeiffer getting the move made there on Ryan Penny.
I think that stunk of slowdown.
Yeah, it did. It's definitely... can see the pace that Ryan's going at the moment. He definitely was given a lot of time up. As Ayrton Williams, time to Nils Kor, 2.7 seconds. Time to Drake Cranstone. Well, you can see him right behind him, can't you? He's hunting him down. But on a circuit such as Zolder, it's so tricky to make the moves. You can't really force the issue. It has to be sort of created naturally, and sometimes that can just come through a mistake from car up ahead, and Williams can't afford any sort of errors, because look at how close that Porsche is right behind him as Tom Stanley in the midst of a fight between himself and Dominic Brennan. Look at how close the two of them come to blows side by side, trying to hang it all the way around the outside is the BMW, but it's just so tricky around those sort of 3 consecutive right hand bends.
A bit further back as well, we've got Drew Fletcher, Toby Ward and John Roberts all together. The boosted cars right up behind Drew. Drew had a coming together with Lee Berridge earlier on, and he's actually got 3 boosted cars behind him, 2 in the immediate vicinity and 1 a bit further back. I'm sure they'll want to avenge their fallen colleague. Lee Berridge not too happy with the incident, it seems, and understandably so. Contact was very unnecessary between the two of them. I think there was a little bit of a door bang down the start-finish straight that we saw, but then into turn 1 the two of them just glued to each other, and then Lee was around. I think the damage sustained from that really affected the rear of the car, because he was off and then that was it, and he was back to the pits. So a big, big shame.
Nils Kor just had a slowdown because he's dropped back about another half a second to Ayrton Williams. Nils, for all of his ability to maintain this 2-second gap, he has been having a few mistakes here and there. That last lap of 35.9 compared to Ayrton Williams, or 35.9 rather, compared to Ayrton Williams' 35.1. So
yeah, big chunk of time.
A little bit of inconsistency creeping in. Of course, You don't really have any time to rest. It's got to be flat out from the word go in a championship like this. You can't afford to drive at 90% because otherwise you will just get caught up and become a sitting duck. Look at Lewis Ward. He's going to see Ayrton Williams and Jake Cranstone battling up ahead and hope that he could maybe get in the midst of it.
Or get over it.
It's always scary, and I think he's got to slow down there as a result of it.
He does. That's the thing, though. I mean, when you're following cars so closely like that, through a chicane like that, where you really need to see your apexes, and you try and gain a bit of time on the other drivers, you can easily get lulled into making a mistake like that and just going too deep, can't you?
Yeah, but it's also just what we just saw from Lewis is such a disappointing thing for him because he was doing such a good job to try and catch up to them, and then all of that hard work, he just watches it slip through his fingers as he has to give up the time, and the Porsche of Jake Cranstone just becomes a smaller and smaller orange speck out of his windshield. For now, though, that gap is back up to 2 seconds, but with the likes of Ayrton Williams and Jake Cranstone battling away, could become a lot smaller. Nils Core, again, over the line, not really the best of lap times, so 1 minute 35.5, 1 minute 35.0 for Ayrton Williams. So nearly half a second once more gained by Ayrton. Not the best couple of laps for Nils Core, and is he starting to maybe feel the pressure?
Potentially so. As Toby Ward's just had a bit of a dance and a spin over the curbs there, down at the Villeneuve chicane. Again, very easily done. We've seen that happen many a time. But Ayrton Williams, yeah, I don't think there's been a single lap of this race where he's not going to have been looking at his mirrors. He's been absolutely swamped by cars throughout this entire race so far. He's going to be looking forward to a bit of a break when he goes back into the pit lane, I think. But still, I mean, if you look at how close the entire field is on the left-hand side of your screen there, Ed, less than half a minute covering the top 16 cars after nearly half an hour of racing. It's still so close here in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Thanks once again to the championship sponsors, Orris Digital. I can't say it. Orris Digital. Crockery Direct, Derbyshire Holiday Homes and Bespoke Shelters. I don't know what it is about me trying to say the word digital and put the T in it without sounding common and saying digital. As Jamie Pounder has just had a slowdown penalty. That's going to help Dan McCauley. Ben Idris Abdullahi just got past him as well. But again, 3 different manufacturers there in that battle. Guy Edwards, the highest placed McLaren so far, but the BOP is still very, very good in these GT4s.
Yeah, I mean, for everything we've been saying about how strong the Aston Martins would be, there's only 2 of them in the top 5, and actually the top 5 consist of 4 different manufacturers. Even those unfavoured BMWs seem to be going well behind the hands of Ben Idris Abdullahi. Now sees himself up into 5th place, a spot where we're more often used to seeing him, aren't we, Chaz, in that sort of top 5 spot, just on the fringes of potentially a podium result should things go his way, as Dominic Brennan brings the camera through the barrier for a brief moment. Yeah, chasing down Tom Stanley. It's just so wonderful, isn't it, to see all of these different manufacturers out here able to race so close together as well. With a facelift on Zolder, you can see those solar panels just on the inside through turn 1. Nice to have done a very good job, to be fair, with a lot of the sort of remodels of their sort of older scans, haven't they? I think Spa is another one that jumps out as a very, very impressive sort of rebuild, I think is how they term it? I think a rebuild of the older circuits.
Yeah, basically it's like a relay of the sort of the art around the track and the surfaces, and they remap any sort of bumps and changes, but obviously they just match it up to the old one that they had, so it's not a complete start from a scratch job. They can sort of consolidate bits, but yeah, from what I've seen, it's a case of just applying the art over the top of the previous buildings and barriers and so on.
And another thing as well is that it's very nice of them to basically publish it as a sort of a free update for any drivers that also own the content. There's a lot of publishers out there that would like to nickel and dime anyone who's spending money on their service, but to be fair, I think iRacing know that what they have is a very premium sort of service and piece of software that they're having people pay for, and they want to give that premium sort of experience back by giving that free sort of touch up to everyone that owns the content, which is good to see. Good to see as well for Ayrton Williams is that gap to Nils Core, again just on the fringes of 1 second. Nils seemingly struggling, or is it maybe just more down to Ayrton Williams picking up the pace, something fierce?
Yeah, brilliant lap last time round by Ayrton Williams, 1:34.9. He's one of the only drivers to get into the 1:34s this race, actually. He's really, really doing well. As Ryan Penny and Drew Fletcher nearly come to blows there through turn 1. Twiggy has rightly pointed out in the YouTube chat that Zolder is a sort of re-art, so it's not really a big change in terms of the actual surface itself. They've just updated the beautiful barriers and the grass and the textures and so on around the track, but the actual change to Spa-Francorchamps has been down to a complete rescan. So there was a lot of Spa, like what used to be No Name Corner, Speaker's Corner. There was another name for it as well, wasn't there? Wasn't that called Jackie Ick's Corner or something?
Oh, I think it has been known as Jackie Ick's, but I think a lot of people do call it either No Name or Speaker's Corner.
Yes. Well, that's now got the sort of moto layout, hasn't it, with the chicane on it. So there's a change there. There's a change to Eau Rouge and the barriers and the grandstands and all sorts. So, yeah, Spa-Francorchamps with quite the revamp. Quite the revamp for it to Apex Racing Academy's season so far, with Dan McCauley now in 6th after starting 9th, Lewis Ward in 4th. These guys are going to get some big old points tonight and gain a lot over Regenta Sim Racing as well. Matt Slight has now gained another position up into 12th. Stephen Burns, one of the biggest movers in the field tonight. He's gained 7 spots. So too has Chris Jennings. So has Drew Fletcher. But our biggest mover is one of my guys. Yeah. Dominic Brennan, Spontex CDM Esports, has gained 8 places inside the top 10. We were talking earlier about how his qualifying hasn't been all that here at Zolder tonight. He's shown us that his race pace and his consistency has been brilliant, and he's gained a lot of ground as a result.
He has been. He said, I think, his qualifying hasn't been the best so far tonight, or especially this season, but in the races we know what he's able to do, and that is just put out a great consistent performance, and he's making a lot of ground and inroads on Matthias Tem. Matthias definitely feeling the pressure. We saw him have a little bit of a moment, his tail getting very happy on the run out of the chicane, getting through Villeneuve. Dominic Brennan just seems to be able to get a lot of sort of turning pitch, which is a very rare thing to see in the BMW. He's able to really sort of hook the car in. Trail braking is so important in these GT4s, and if you're able to get it right, you can get that nose to really pitch into the corners. And then the grunt, the power that it puts down, the torque out of the corners, so good as well in that BMW. Was allowing him to try and reel in the Mercedes of Matthias. Out in front as well. It's another couple of tenths for Ayrton Williams in his pursuit of teammate Nils Core. In fact, now you can see that Ayrton is nearly as close to Nils Core as Cranstone is to Williams.
Yeah, it's remarkable,
It's going to become a 3-way fight soon for the lead of this race, Chaz.
And the interesting subject now is going to be the second pit stop in the race, as Ayrton Williams having a bit of a blink in and out there. He's deploying the invisibility cloak. It's not easy to race against him when that happens, and you feel for Jake in this moment, because if he does come across a moment where he can send it, got to worry whether there will be a blink or an issue with the connection. But the satellite racing car's still first and second right now. The Porsche, even from the onboard, feels so much more nimble than the BMW, doesn't it? You can see that the BMW clearly working well for Dominic Brennan when we rode on board with him not too long ago, but it does look like it has the turning circle of a small moon, doesn't it, really? The BMWs. Oh, Ben Chalcraft has found out that it's not got the turning circle of a small moon with Ian Pfeiffer. The two of them have had a big drama here. Is Ian going to repeat what we saw happen with him and Jake Cranstone earlier, where one loses it and then someone else gets caught up in it? Yes. Oh my goodness me, that was a massive hit for Ben Chalcraft.
Yeah, this time it was Ian's turn to be the driver ahead with a little error. In fact, the rear looks to get a little bit loose as he turns in, and then just can't give it too much speed. The car runs out wide. Ben Chalcraft goes one way, then the other, gambles on which way that Mercedes is going to end up, but sadly made the wrong call. An innocent bystander really to a lot of it. Nothing that could have been done by Ian Pfeiffer. As soon as he lost control, he was basically just a passenger, and now he lost out a lot. Actually, what's happened here, Ayrton Williams, he's lost a lot of ground to Nils Core and is now feeling a big turn of pressure as Jake Cranstone really turned the wick up. There we go. Jake Cranstone really turned the wick up to try and get through, but the corner comes too fast for him to make any sort of inroads, any sort of move.
This is incredible stuff, though, by Jake. Great persistence. And this is the thing. Jake's had this persistence all season. He's just gaining all the time. And lifts a little bit there, potentially saving some fuel where he can. Lewis Ward back in the picture as well, I'd argue, now because of this. He's been able to rein them both in a little bit. Ben Idris Abdullahi's just on the fastest first sector of anybody in the whole race. So Ben's absolutely flying. Crimson in the chat asking why is it always Ben. It does seem to always be Ben, doesn't it? I really feel sorry for him. He's not had the circuit long either, so he was worried about his pace for tonight because he's not been able to do as much practice for this one. But yeah, 99% of people will say that he went the right direction with that accident there with Ian, but the way the car bounced off the barrier was so violent. There's something we've not seen in a while, actually, Ed. The wing mirror hanging down off Jake Cranstone's Porsche. We've not seen that happen in ages.
No, we haven't. It's a great little side of the Derbyshire, isn't it? You can see it just hanging on by a sort of little wire or something.
It's just tethered on, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's just hanging off. I can't remember the last time we saw that. It must have been. I think it would have been in this championship, but maybe in a TCR series or something. I don't know, but yeah, wing mirror hanging down from Jake's car.
A sign of what might have happened to Ed Williams as well, why he's lost so much ground to Niels Core. Was there a bit of contact between the pair of them? I can't see any other reason why Jake Cranstone's wing mirror would be hanging on. Could have been a curb. I don't know if a curb would knock it loose. I mean, it might have done.
I was going to make a joke about a Porsche, but Porsche have fantastic build quality. It's gone back in place almost there. But if it was the Aston Martin, I mean, it's just bound to fall off at some point anyway. But because it's a Porsche, it's built well. So yeah, I'm not sure. It must have been a curb or something, surely.
Yeah. Best of British build quality, that is.
Oh, yeah,
the wing mirrors hanging off and the bumpers are sort of just hooked on, not really bottling into place at all.
Yeah, command strips.
Yeah, that's the plan. That's how we do things here. Ben Idris Abdullahi is going to try and show Dan McCauley how he does things as he's chasing down now. Position. Well, actually, he's been lost out, hasn't he? He was up in 5th place and he's dropped back in behind Jamie Pounder and Dan McCauley. Because he was up in 5th early, wasn't he?
Yes. Yes, he lost the place to Jamie earlier, and I think then Dan got through. When did Dan got through? I think he actually got through when he had a slowdown penalty of sorts. Here is the move for P6. Yes. Yeah, Jamie gets through while he has a slowdown, and Dan does as well. Because I think Ben had a slowdown earlier, lost the place, then regained it from Jamie, and then he's lost it again. So he'll be fuming with himself over that one. This battle is still the main bit of our attention, I'm afraid, or the main focus for our attention, as now Jake Cranstone finally gets the Porsche alongside, finally down the inside of Ayrton Williams, but Ayrton tries to get the cut back on him, and they remain, Chaz speak English, side by side down towards the chicane. Who's going to give here? Is Jake going to back out of it? Yes, he is. Very, very wise stuff there. The car on the outside is usually the one with the better line, so for your own sake, you may as well give it up. There's a bit of a move here between Dan McCauley and Ben Idris Abdullahi on the timing screen there. Not quite sure what caused that, but still, the battling carries on. This is really going to help Niels Core as, Martin Kenyon enters the Paris-Dakar, goes straight on at the chicane. Now he's going to want to get out of the way here as Ayrton Williams has a big old wobble through there. Look at how frantic this looks from Jake Cranstone's point of view. The Aston is dancing around on the circuit, but the two of them battling brilliantly. This is really clean, lovely stuff so far.
Yeah, Jake, he's just trying to find any way past, and he's given a little bit of a bump on the exit, realises that he's caused a little bit of strife for Ayrton Williams. I think backs out of it, also realises that there was not really a lot of room around the outside where he was trying to go. But this is just working a treat for this other satellite racing team as Lewis Ward comes straight on into the pits, on time as well to make it up until the end of the race. So maybe he sees this battling as an opportunity to gain some positions, because if these two slow each other down, well, we know that that Mercedes of Lewis Ward is going to be a driver that's going to certainly benefit from that. Nearly 3 seconds the gap actually at Williams to Niels Core as well. Is it going to be a satellite racing 1-2 as it stands? If those two start battling, we could see satellite racing winning with Niels Core, but then Mercedes of Lewis Ward joining him up in 2nd place.
Yes, indeed. We'll have to keep our eye on it. These two have been absolute superstars so far with the battling they've had. Don't forget, 2 newcomers to the championship this season as well, Ayrton Williams and Jake Cranstone. Great entertainment from both of them. Multiple race wins across the pair of them. So many podium finishes as well for each of them this season. Jake went on a run of 5 podiums on the bounce at one point. Ayrton Williams took a race win in the very second race of the season. He's had 2 third places since then. Consistent point scorer. And Satellite Racing Blue will take the team's championship lead after tonight. With unfortunately not enough of a force from Regenta tonight to fight. But Matt Slight still doing a great job though. Just outside of the top 10 when everybody's pitted. But the two of them work so well together as Niels Kaur does now enter the pit lane. Onto the pit lane speed limiter he goes, and Ayrton Williams and Jake Cranstone have carried on.
No, is that maybe Niels Kaur pitting though to try and cover off maybe a charge from Lewis Ward? Is Ayrton Williams continuing to battle with Jake Cranstone?
Potentially, yeah, you've got a good point. Dan McCauley in as well with Ben Idris Abdullahi. Pounder's carried on as well.
Yeah, because we know that Niels Kaur had a comfortable gap, nearly 3 seconds to the 2 cars behind, but he doesn't know exactly where Lewis Ward's going to come out. And I think that's been in the forefront of his mind to try and cover off any charge from the Apex Racing Academy driver who has made it 2 wins in the last 2 races, looking to make it a 3rd. Certainly has good pace around here. It was battling up there, is in 2nd at one point, but now with Lewis Ward, where will he find himself? As Niels Kaur is actually on his way out of the pit lane, Lewis Ward, I think, isn't really anywhere to be seen.
Let's see. Lewis now going around the first corner. You could hear Niels getting up to speed. He's just on the right-hand side there, I think, actually.
Is he? Ooh.
Oh, no, he's gone around the corner already. What on earth?
He's well ahead. I was going to say, there's nowhere to see him.
I could hear somebody coming out of the pits, but I couldn't quite see who it was. Oh, it was Ben Idris Abdullahi was coming out of the pit lane. It was a different sounding car. I'm going mental. I'm sorry. Still,
Abdullahi's actually had a great run because he's right behind Lewis Ward here. That's me. He's made up a lot of ground because Ben's taking his 2nd stop as well.
Yeah, he's 4 seconds behind at the moment. He's ahead of Dan McCauley though, which is good because he's jumped Dan, sort of reverse jumped Dan in the pits again. So he's gotten back at him as the race leader comes in. Ayrton Williams, Jake Cranstone, Jamie Pounder also into the pits. Martin Kenyon in there as well in the background. I'm not sure if Pounder got held up behind him on the way in. Guy Edwards and Tom Stanley having a little bit of a dig at each other here. 9th and 10th on the road at the moment. But let's go to... Where is he? Niels Kaur. Niels Kaur into the Boulderberg Bocht, the hairpin. With quarter of an hour left to go in this race. Ayrton Williams and Jake Cranstone. Let's go to the pit lane camera. Not moving yet. Simon Povey's car's still there. He's been there for 23 minutes now. Let's see when they get moving and let's see where Niels Kaur goes. I think Niels is just crossing the line now. Yes, here he is. And now they're getting moving. And it is still Ayrton Williams ahead of Jake Cranstone. I expected to see Jake jump Ayrton in that, but he has not done so. And Niels Kaur is clear of the pair of them. There is Ayrton Williams. What is the gap going to be when it stabilises? Niels Kaur has had an absolute belter there. Absolute belter, and the two of them have actually got away from Jake.
Looks like about 1.5 seconds, just under 2 seconds. So Ayrton Williams having a much shorter stop, about a second shorter, stationary in the pit lane. Actually, over the whole of the pit lane time, it's around about 1.5 seconds that Ayrton Williams was able to save over Niels Kaur, as Jamie Pounder and Dan McCauley are going hammer and tongs at one another. Pounder with the inside line should be able to get this move sorted, which he does. Lovely little battle for them both, but it is Jamie Pounder coming out on top. I can try and set his sights on Ben Idris Abdullahi. Look at him just chucking it through. That's the Aston Martin for you. It isn't necessarily the best built thing, but it does ride those curbs brilliantly.
Yeah, the bottom doesn't fall. Well, the front won't fall off, you could say, when you hit the curbs. Callum Brandt at the moment trying to recover some positions. He's in the points as he overtakes Stephen Codman. Stephen just says, "No, I don't want to fight you, Callum." Through you go. Good respect that by Stephen. Says no thanks. Drew Fletcher and John Roberts having a fight here for the final point scoring positions. Bit of damage on the left rear of Drew's car. Ryan Penny is 5 seconds behind these guys, so they've got a bit of daylight. They're just under 14 minutes left to go here in the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Thanks once again to the championship sponsors, Orris Digital, Crockery Direct, Derbyshire Holiday Homes and Bespoke Shelters. Thanks to all of you for watching so far as well tonight here on Chaz Draycott Media. It's Chaz Draycott and Ed May in the commentary box. Hope you're all enjoying yourselves. It's been a very intricate race this for the first time with the 33% fuel limit in the championship. I think it used to be 30, didn't it? And then we increased it to 40 in the early days. Am I thinking right? I can't remember. I'll find out.
We'll figure it out. We'll check back through the archives. We didn't keep hold of a lot of that information for you here at the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. But yes, Ayrton Williams, he's going to try and set his sights on his teammate Nils Core if he can, because he's not miles away up the road with only 13 minutes remaining. There's still a chance for him to take top spot. The pair of them as well, actually, I think, isn't it? Nils Core and Ayrton Williams tied together on points.
128 each.
Right. So I don't think there'll be any team orders coming through. As long as they don't essentially hurt one another in their quest for the team's championship, they should be okay to battle. Jake Cranstone, he's going to want himself into the mix as well, but can't afford any slip-ups. If he doesn't score points, he misses out on a big chance to gain over on his main championship rival, who is not here in attendance tonight. Let's not forget the absence of Taylor Adams, who did come into this race, or this 11th round of the championship, leading only by a single point, mind you. Will give Jake Cranstone a great bump forwards if he's able to get through on it. And Williams now to get even more points to his tally. Backs out of it. Look at how much he's darting to the inside. He's really hungry for this, showing no signs of restraint whatsoever.
I'll tell you what, it's great stuff from Ayrton Williams as well, because he's acting completely unfazed at the moment. You know, he's not really moving the car around too much. He's not putting on a huge defensive drive here. He's not throwing it into the inside line, into every corner to cover it off. He's just putting the car in the right place, and he's going to continue to do that. And as a benefit, his teammate will gain more and more time. He's actually gained 0.2 of a second already on this lap as Nils Chorus. Jake Cranstone is around at the chicane. Jake overdoes it over the curb, and that was that. I thought for a second it wasn't going to go completely around, but Lewis Ward now finds himself up in third place. Idris Abdullahi is now fourth, Pounder fifth, and Macaulay finds himself in sixth place. You know what? I hate to say this. I could see it coming. The way it bounced over the first one, I thought, no, it's not going to make it.
Oh dear. And what were we saying about him trying not to make any mistakes?
Oof, flipping heck. I bet that felt absolutely awful.
That is... Yeah, I hope he doesn't have a motion rig, because that would have...
He'll be in the he'll be on the landing.
Out of his spine. He'd be having to be sort of stretching out of the car, come the end of it, get a neck brace on him. But that is pretty horrendous of an impact over the curbs. But it does seem to seal the deal for Satellite Racing, doesn't it? Nils Coronet and Williams with a much more comfortable advantage over Lewis Ward, who will make it 3 podiums from 3 races if the race continues on how it has been so far. Look at Guy Edwards now, looking to the outside, now going to the inside. Can he brake late enough to get along through on Matthias Tem? Matthias giving him the outside, giving him the inside line, knowing that he can then retake that inside line for the next few corners, which are the all-important ones. But look at the drive out of the corner, actually, for Guy Edwards. He's right alongside. The two of them bash wheels, coming now in towards turn 3. But Matthias Tem, with a lot of speed coming through, is able to defend and hang on to that 8th place. Now look at Dom Brennan. He fancies a piece of this. Look at them so wide up ahead. Tom decides, I don't want any piece of this. You two can duke it out, and I'll pick up the pieces when you're slow off of the corner. And he's going to try and find any way past the Resdanda Nomad car of Tom Stanley, but there's just no room being afforded to him. But does Tom have a slowdown?
I think he
does. Going a little bit slower. He's going to try and serve it while not losing a position. And Dominic Brennan isn't able to gain.
There was another move a bit further up there. Dan Macaulay got past Jamie Pounder. I think Jamie had a slowdown penalty. Yep, Dan goes through up into the top 5. He's now going to chase down Idris Abdullahi for another position as well. But wow, great battles going on all over the place here. Nils Core will be a very happy bunny right now. Still 9 minutes left on the clock, but Satellite Racing Blue have a decent lead. 1.2 seconds between their two cars, then 3.7 seconds back to Lewis Ward in third position. However, it would be Lewis's third podium on the bounce after taking 2 wins at Donington Park. He will be on, well, he'll be on cloud 9 after that, because it certainly turned his season around. I didn't even think he had a podium before then. No, he finished second actually at Long Beach near the start of the season. But since then, no podium finishes, and then he gets 2 wins out of nowhere. Now, can Dan McCauley stay ahead of Jamie Pounder here? Jamie qualified 5th, so we know he's got good pace. He's also got a lot of understeer. Wow.
Yeah, the Aston Martin doesn't seem to like its tyres at this late phase of the race compared to the likes of that Mercedes. It looks very planted for him. And don't forget, look who's right behind him. A driver that's certainly hungry to make up some ground after losing out earlier. Jake Cranstone just in the mix as well. Dan McCauley, though, he'll be looking to make it another position to help out their team's fight, isn't it? Because Satellite Racing are the team just ahead of them in the team's championship. When you consider the fact that I think Apex Race Academy are in 3rd, Satellite Racing are in 2nd, and then it is, I think it is at least a
it's Regenta at the front.
Regenta in the front, isn't it? But Regenta not being able to score as many points might find themselves actually in 3rd.
Yes.
If we topped up all the points being scored by the likes of Lewis Ward and Dan McCauley, Niels Coronet and Williams as well. Like you say, it's almost close to a perfect weekend, isn't it, for Niels? Not a weekend, sorry, a perfect evening.
I do that.
No, it's easily done. But Niels Coronet and Williams, like you say, it was only Simon Povey able to take a point off of them based on his qualifying performance. Which again, Simon's rotten luck. He just can't catch a break, can he?
Not at all. He's been in the pits now for over half an hour. I think that was it when he was sat in the pit lane. So he'll be gutted about that one. Very gutted indeed. This is now a 3-way fight here. Dan McCauley just in front of Jake Cranstone and Jamie Pounder and... sorry, get your words out, Chaz. Dan McCauley just in front of Jamie Pounder and Jake Cranstone. Flipping heck. I'd imagine if I was a commentator. It'd be amazing. Matthias Tem and Guy Edwards are close together as well. We'll see them just in the background once these guys go through the chicane. Smacking the curb, 1, 2, 3, the 3 different impact noises. And then we've got Guy Edwards just behind Matthias Tem in the McLaren. Look at him just trying to find a way past the round, big, beefy backside of that Mercedes. Lovely looking car, the Fury Simsport livery as well, very potent. Guy certainly not one to muck about with gaining places. We've seen some epic drives through the field from him before. Look at the way the cars have to really handle themselves through that chicane.
Cranstone, I think, has just gotten through on Jamie Pounder up another place. Wonderful stuff there. We'll see exactly how that move was made. So we switch over now. This is just coming in towards the Boulderberg Bocht, and it is a slowdown for Jamie Pounder.
He's had a lot of them this race.
Yeah.
It seems to always be the Prestanda Nomad cars that have got them. I think Idris Abdullahi's had one as well, you know, because he's less than a second ahead of Dan McCauley now. He's lost a lot of time somewhere.
Yeah, it's easy done though, isn't it? Just getting a little slowdown. I think through the Villeneuve chicane, and then the best place to serve it is in towards the Boulderberg Harshberg Bocht. Mouthful of a corner, and you can see in the, well, there's a mouthful of McLaren for Matthias Tem, as Guy Edwards does slip up his inside, and now sees himself up in 8th place. Matthias just, I think, caught off guard a little bit, but Guy Edwards very aggressive, very measured as well up on the inside. Lovely little overtake there.
Yeah, great judgment by both drivers as well there for them to just sort of slot back in front of one another. They were almost completely touching on the exit of turn 1. Now, Guy's going to put the car in the middle of the road here, almost to just say to him, don't do it down the inside, Matthias. Don't do it down the inside, Matthias. Matthias has done it down the inside. He's actually going to go deep into the chicane. He's going to hold the pair of them up, though. And now, behind them, you're going to get Tom Stanley in the mix as well, if he doesn't get a slowdown penalty, because the Nomad cars seem to have done a lot of that. Still side-by-side into the second chicane. This is not ideal for either car in front. Tem tries it across Guy Edwards. I think there's nearly contact. We just about had them go off the screen. Somehow Tem has made it work, but that's why we've missed Matthias. That feisty nature to take any position at any corner that he possibly can. Never gives up, does Tem. This is brilliant fighting. Guy Edwards is very similar in that respect as well, that he will not give up a position. It is really, really strong fight in this. 4 minutes left to go.
Yeah, 2 drivers that never like to give up or give in on any situation. We hope that this is going to be a nice, sweet battle and won't end up in tears come the end of the race. But for now, what a battle we've been treated to. This is a real tight fight as up ahead as well. I think Dan McCauley's in a bit of a tussle with Jake Cranstone. Look at Jake trying to find his way through on the outside that Porsche. Look at the power he's able to put down on the run out, being able to look after his tyres. So I think he has the grip advantage over Dan McCauley. but they're so close. They're rubbing on each other. Both of them running wide. Need to be careful on the rejoin. They do get through without any sort of grief, but that is just a little bit of a touch, isn't it?
I think
two of them.
I think Jake just turns into him there, just misjudges it that little bit. And I tell you what, it's a good save by Jake Cranstone as well, as the two of them ran wide. But yeah, just misjudged the overlap a little bit there, did Jake? Yeah,
Jake can't afford to force the issue too much. He has to think about the bigger picture in the championship, a real big opportunity to make up some ground. Cannot afford to lose out here tonight. We'll see, of course, if he's able to get the move done on Dan McCauley before the checker flag falls within the next 3 minutes. And it is going to be 3 minutes that should see Nils Coronet and Williams making it a Satellite Racing 1-2. And what a drive it's been from those pair, hasn't it? Those Aston Martins have looked very strong from the word go. It was that little mistake, wasn't it, actually, from Simon Povey at the end of the first lap. And then they haven't really looked back since, apart from, I think, one brief moment where Lewis Ward got ahead of Ayrton. It's been plain sailing for Satellite Racing.
Yeah, they've done really, really well here. It's been a fantastic performance by the pair of them. Even at the start of the race as well, it looked very controlled, very measured in the way that they matched Simon in the opening moments of the race. Didn't really do too much to sort of compromise anything at all. It was all very well measured, as that is a well-measured move as well by Jake Cranstone. Gets the cutback at turn 2, puts himself on the inside of Dan McCauley. Through he goes at the Lucien Bianchi box. Great move that. Runs a little bit wide on the exit though. Does Dan get the run? He certainly does in the Mercedes. Dives out to the right hand side. It's usually the car on the inside that you'll see back out there, but Jake says no, I'm just going to gradually put the car in the right place. Slows it down, although has another jump over that chicane. He's going to have PTSD of those curbs. As look at this, Jamie Pounder says I'll try a bit of that. Tries to go through on the right hand side. Dan says no you don't. Door closed indeed. That was scary stuff there before the chicane. Good stuff on Jamie to back out of it. Wow. These guys are not leaving an inch.
That was scary stuff. Getting his fingers nearly caught in the door there, Jamie Pounder. Said he has to bang on that door for at least one more lap. And I think we will only see one more, as Nils Cort, when he gets up to the line, should see the white flag being waved for him. So that does mean there's going to be only one lap left of this amazing 11th round of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Championship in its 5th iteration. And we've been treated to yet another spectacle here as the sun is starting to set on what has been a wonderful evening's worth of racing. Lewis Ward able to get essentially yet another podium, waiting so long for some more good fortune, and then in the last 3 races he's going to make it 3 podiums in a row.
Ben Idris Abdullahi as well, just missing out on a podium if he finishes where he is right now. But what a great night he's had as well. Started 7th on the grid, up into 4th place, making the most of it. And the likes of Jake Cranstone, Dan McCauley, Jamie Pounder also on for big points. 2 Prestander Nomad cars in the top 10. Dominic Brennan still the biggest mover. No, he's not actually. Drew Fletcher is the biggest mover in the field. 8 places gained to get into the points as well. He's just behind John Roberts at this late stage. Those two have been having a good scrap actually, by the look of it. Let's have a little look at this, as John has been side by side with him down the inside into turn 2. This is when he got the move done earlier on. Oh, just a McLaren's width on the apex there, and I think a bit of a touch on the exit as well. We need to go back to this though, because Jake Cranstone has made a mistake and he's dropped down again. Jake Cranstone has been overtaken by Jamie Pounder. Is it a slowdown? Oh, he's messed up through that chicane again. He's made another mistake through there, and now these two go past. But we need to go to the front, because I can't believe I'm saying this, at round 11, for his first win of the season, reigning champion Nils Cort makes it across the line, takes the win in round 11, and it's a Satellite Racing Blue 1-2. Ayrton Williams 2nd, Lewis Ward in 3rd. Great race for those boys. Ben Idris Abdullahi comes home in 4th. Dan McCauley is going to round out the top 5 ahead of Jamie Pounder, and Jake Cranstone, well, he's going to round out what's been a crazy race for him. He's been so up and down the order, Ed. He doesn't know where to look, I'm sure.
Yeah, Matthias Tem just able to hang on to this trainer cars in behind. Guy Edwards settling for 9th place, but what a great fight those two gave us in those dying 10 minutes of this race. Rounding out the top 10 as well, Tom Stanley, great drive from him. We saw him in the thick of a lot of the action too, so it's great to see him get top 10 reward for his efforts. As Toby Johns, has he run out of fuel?
He has indeed, and the main beneficiary is going to be Ryan Penny, who's going to move up into a point scoring position. And unless John Barnes is going to send it from all the way back there, he will be the last driver to score points from this round of the championship. Drew Fletcher still chasing down John Roberts. But it's going to be Ryan Penny to complete the point scorers here at Zolder in round 11 of the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. But Nils Kaur, what a boy. What a boy. He's been waiting for that one. Only three podiums earlier this season, 2 second places, and then a 3rd place in round 6 of the championship. Nils Kaur finally takes a race victory in his championship title defence. It's incredible to think, really, isn't it? He won so many races in the Winter Tour, did that so well, then won a lot of races last season as well in incredible fashion. Do you remember he was basically completely down the order at the very first race of the season at La Laguna Seca, and then he came back and won multiple races on the bounce. And since then, well, he went on to win the championship, and we've not seen him on the top step until now. But that is beautiful stuff from Nils Kaur. Very well done to him and Satellite Racing Blue. Let's have a look at the race results. So Nils Kaur and Ethan Williams, 1-2 for Satellite Racing Blue. Apex Racing Academy get Lewis Ward on the podium, and a great drive by Ben Idris Abdullahi for Chicane Online Racing. Dan McCauley, another top 5 and big points for him. Jamie Pounder has 6th position to his name. A great night for Prestanda Nomad. Jake Cranstone, 7th after all of that. That doesn't tell you the full story there. Matthias Tem does a great job to get into 8th position, 4 places gained for him. Guy Edwards, 9th after a really titanic scrap, and Tom Stanley completes the top 10. 7 places gained for Don Brennan, just outside the top 10, ahead of Matt Slight. He'll have wanted more from this evening. Same with Dennis Van Beelen and Callum Brandt. A good recovery by Callum, though. Stephen Burns ahead of Stephen Codman, with Ben Chalcraft 17th. John Roberts holds on to 18th after a great scrap with Drew Fletcher, and Ryan Penny completes the top 20 and the point scorers. John Barnes was next up ahead of Chris Jennings and Toby Ward. And then the cars that were a lap down were Toby Johns, Kim Such, Heinz Mayer and Simon Price. Martin Kenyon was 11 laps down in the end. Ian Pfeiffer 15 laps down. And then we lost Simon Povey, Mark Johnson and Lee Berridge. Well, I think that was a belter, that one, Ed. It was our first endurance race in a little while. And the drivers obviously had to think a lot about the fuel over the course of that one as well, because the new fuel limit in these cars for this season certainly makes life difficult. But yeah, that posed a different challenge. That we had people running out of fuel at the end still as well.
Yeah, which is something we haven't seen for a long time, have we, in Sim Racing Magazine? Actually, no, we did see a little bit at Long Beach, wasn't it, when drivers were really gambling on that one stop. But it was still a great race, and it's a testament to show that the change in format, while not necessarily loved by all the drivers, they voted for it, and it seems to have given us a great race as a result.
Yeah, it really was a very, very solid race indeed, and it's great to see a certain driver back on the top step of the podium, and we'll bring him in for an interview. Nils, welcome back to the commentary box, mate. You must be a bit relieved after tonight, I imagine.
Very much so. It has been a long time coming. Didn't have a win for pretty much half a season or more now.
I was going to say, the Aston has been a solid wagon for you guys this season. I mean, Ayrton took a race win earlier on in the championship, but I mean, the level's so high this season, isn't it, that it's just been hard to be that one driver to take a victory.
Yeah, definitely. We have really great pace, especially also in qualifying, which I always struggled with in the BMW. The BMW is just not a great car for quali. But meanwhile, so far in the season, I've struggled a bit with the Aston with consistency, which always made the races a bit harder. And also, as you saw last round, like last week, I just don't really get along with the rain. So have to definitely get working on that.
I was going to say it's a bit more of a topsy-turvy season with so many more elements thrown at you guys, but finally with that first win on the board for this campaign, does that give you a lot more confidence now, especially leading the team's championship after tonight?
Yeah, this today was a really, really awesome team effort there. As I was leading, I obviously couldn't quite save as much as the guys behind me, so Ayrton helped me a lot, keeping them a bit further behind, so they didn't really get a chance to do anything. And yeah, that worked out great, and we got the 1-2.
Well, it's been great to see you get that win, Nils. It's been a very popular victory from the commentary box, I can tell you that. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Yeah, as already said, biggest shout out to Ayrton. He definitely helped me a lot there. And then obviously Big shout out to our sponsors, and yeah.
Well, it's great to speak to you again, Nils. Well done on the victory, mate. Enjoy the rest of your night, and we will hopefully speak to you soon.
Yep. See you guys.
Well, there we go. Nils Core, reigning champion. Like he said, it's been a couple of months since we've seen him win a race here, Ed. It's just strange to see, isn't it? But still very consistent, and that's why he's still in the championship fight.
Yeah, and I think it's as well a testament just to the strength of the field that we've got on offer, that last season's champion, even after the great races he's been able to give us so far this season, has taken it until round 11 before he's able to taste victory at that very top spot. But it is just so wonderful, isn't it, to have that variety and newcomer coming in, that we can actually speak to one of them now, Chaz.
Absolutely. Well, this guy's going to want to knock his mirrors off for the next round, so he doesn't have to look at them, because all race Ayrton Williams has been looking in the mirrors, I imagine. You must be absolutely buzzing to have completed a Team 1-2 there, Ayrton. That was a great drive.
Yeah, no, really good. I'm pretty happy with how I defended. Not that this track, Zolder, is particularly easy to overtake on anyway, but I was happy that I was able to keep Jake behind, because he is quick. He's very quick. He's been consistent all year, and he's really quick. So, I was happy to keep him behind. And then, obviously, unfortunately, he's made the mistake he made, which was unfortunate because it was shaping up to a pretty good battle there. But yeah, I was just driving my own race, just making sure I kept a gap to Neil. So if anything happened, he had time to recover for any reasons. I was just running my own race, just taking everything a bit easy. I didn't want to get a slowdown either, because if I got a slowdown, I was going to end up behind everyone. So,
well, I was going to say that the slowdowns were one of the talking points tonight, because that's one of the most brutal things about Zolder, isn't it? You've got all these very enticing curbs and chicanes that you can throw the car at, especially with the Aston, but the slowdowns are really ruthless, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, we saw, again, unfortunately, with Simon on, I think it was the first lap or the second lap, slow down then, and he dropped back behind me, and then it's one of those hard things to recover from there, because it's a track that just overtaking is just so hard. Like Jake was definitely a lot quicker than me here, and I was able just to kind of put my car in the right spot, and he just couldn't really get by. I had a pretty good battle with him, a switchback on him, but otherwise good racing all around. And yeah, the curbs are a bit scary. There was a couple of moments where I hit the curbs, and the car was like, yeah, I don't want to do what I did the last lap. I'm going to go like sideways. And I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah, it certainly seemed like it was different every single lap, but I suppose that's part of the charm of Zolder. Do you want to give anyone a shout out before you go, Ayrton?
Yeah, well, of course, my teammates Niels and Ian, of course, Satellite Racing as a whole, including our sponsors, Dr. Dabber, Moradness, Phyllis Engineering as well. They're great partners to have, as usual.
Cracking stuff. Well, great to speak to you, mate. Well done on that brilliant 1-2, and we hope to speak to you again later on in the season.
Hopefully so. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, man. Ayrton Williams, a great character, Ed. Very, very great character indeed. And, well, completing that 1-2 and working with Niels like that, it's all a team game, and they've absolutely nailed that, and now they're top of the team's championship. Yeah,
they played it to perfection, didn't they? It was a really great drive. Like you said, the defensive acumen that was on display from him was, I think, some of the best all season. Of course, the circuit helped out, being quite narrow, quite technical, quite difficult to overtake on, but still, he played his part and made it a great 1-2 for the team.
And another great team effort tonight was that of Apex Racing Academy as well. Lewis Ward getting a podium, Dan McCauley getting a top 5 as well. Dan, another great points haul for you guys tonight. You must be buzzing with that, especially after Donington.
Yeah, that was a lot of hard work for 5th place, but I'm glad I could sort of hang on in there to do it for the team. It was actually a bit more interesting than usual. I feel like the change in fuels allowed us to, if there's a bit of a gap in front of you, you're not scared to push into it now, because you're trying to hit a fuel number, as long as you're above the lap that you need to make. Like we were like 14 and a half laps, as long as you kept within the 14 laps, you could push up, so it made it a lot more interesting for my mid-pack sort of area. No, it was great fun.
I was going to say, I imagine from a driver's perspective, there was more sort of phases to the race rather than it constantly be fuel save. You could, like you say, you choose what you do at each moment and calculate then accordingly, do you?
It felt like 3 sprint races.
Yeah, fair.
It was like the first sprint is let's get sort of suss people out, where they're quick, where they're slow, what you can do. and kind of see where the cars were going to come out and settle down in terms of fuel. Like, I wasn't sure if the McLaren could go another. The McLaren was going to make the same lap as us. The BMW was going to go an extra lap. So the first stint was sort of sussing out that. The second stint was let's see how many slowdowns we can all get in that little pack. And then the third stint was let's try desperately not to get any slowdowns because you've worked this hard to keep this position. So yeah, it was definitely a different dynamic to the usual fuel saving. Especially where I was, I think it was still a bit fuel saving at the front. But yeah, it was. I think it's been a good change in my eyes.
Well, it's good to hear that, and it's obviously been a good time for you and your teammate Lewis at Apex. You've both been completely reining in all the points, and obviously you have to with Satellite Racing Blue getting a 1-2 tonight as well, and Regenta not being there. It's mighty tight in the team's championship, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Considering Lewis didn't think he could make this race and didn't do any practice at all.
Don't. For God's sake.
I think we've sort of done really well there. He was pretty certain he couldn't make it because he had a date clash, but it turns out he got them wrong. So yeah, it's pretty good. Well, I think the Neil's in a sort of, are they pulling a gap now, or?
I'll have to do the maths in about a week when the results get done.
Yeah,
so.
I feel like that was about the maximum I could get today. I think I messed qualifying up a little bit. I got a slowdown onto my flying lap at the end, so that ruined that one.
Oh no!
But yeah, I think it was a decent recovery from that, and it's just generally great racing between Ben, myself, Jamie, and Jake. It was sort of sweaty.
Well, it's always entertaining to watch, Dan. Is there anyone you'd like to give a thanks to while we've got you?
Just a huge shout out to you two for the broadcast, Lewis for setting the Discord, and Drew for that amazing driver's brief before the race started.
Did he do it in his captain's voice?
No, I did ask, but we didn't quite get it.
Oh, that's annoying. Either
way.
It
was a nice encore of thanks Andy after it though, so always inspire it.
Love it. Well, it's great to speak to you as always, Dan. Thanks very much, mate, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Well, good to hear that there are drivers that like the changes, Ed, and as Dan explained there, it does sort of add different segments to the race.
Yeah, it does, and it is great to see that the drivers are enjoying the change as well to the format, the way that it's been able to sort of shake things up a little bit. Obviously, not a lot of seasons and series we do like to have those sort of mid-season rule changes, but it was something that was a big sentiment from a lot of the drivers, wasn't it, about changing the way that the races are approached, maybe by lowering the fuel limits. And the first time it's come into effect, it has really worked out brilliantly, but I think that is sadly all the time we have for tonight, Chaz, but looking forward to the next round, which sadly I won't be able to attend.
No, unfortunately it will be Chaz flying solo in the commentary box, unless Simon Povey wants to try his hand at commentating instead of driving, because I think he'd be a little bit better at that by the look of it. He's blaming that the car is cursed at the moment, to be fair, and we'll have to see. I know Simon's mum's probably watching again tonight as well, so hello Mrs. Povey, we love you loads, and we're not really taking the mick out of your son. We do love him. He's very entertaining. But next time round we have another endurance race on the 24th of September at Catalonia. We're on the historic layout, so it gets rid of that god-awful chicane, which is, I heard the word gopping the other day, and I love it, and I'm using it for everything, that gopping chicane. But still, a great turn of events for Satellite Racing Blue, 1-2 for them, and Apex Racing Academy continue on a very impressive run of consistency. That's all from me, Chaz Draycott, and the wonderful Ed May here this evening on Chaz Draycott Media for the Sim Racing Magazine GT4 Challenge. Thanks once again to Orris Digital, Crockery Direct, Derbyshire Holiday Homes, and Bespoke Shelters, and we will all see you in a week's time at Catalonia. Four French drivers at the French Grand Prix trying to win this on the final lap. They're three wide again. Guillaume down the inside. Guillaume moves across. They're both in front of Milan and Pouget.
Before you know it, we find ourselves here in the very final race of the competition.
And then they see truck racing and they think, this is crazy. You know, these are 5-ton machines, 1,200 horsepower brake.
Oh, look at that switchback. Oh, you can look and a drift to show off. Ben Gregory now, I love it. 10.5 minutes gone. Senna Lanson tries to go for the race lead.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.